Legend has it that once our world was whole. Our people were one. Our society was united. But then the fires came.
Lair's setting is a world in chaos, and the chaos is coming from a climate catastrophe where basically volcanoes have thrown the whole world into turmoil.
What has happened is that it's made it difficult for them to have fresh water, it's made it difficult for them to farm, and now resources are scarce.
We're asking a lot of questions in it which are pertinent to our world as it is nowadays, and trying to inject that a little bit into the story.
As devastating as their advent was, the volcanoes unleashed an even greater force upon the people. Fear.
We're trying to reinvent fantasy on a certain level.
Lair is basically about a guy named Roan who is a sky guard in the Assyrian army. It's sort of the story of his inner journey and outer journey as he fights against the evil in the world.
He's fighting a war that he doesn't necessarily want to fight.
Mount up, Roan! The Mokai are torching the city!
But he feels a sense of obligation of protecting his people, his city, from the other race. So he's sort of a reluctant warrior initially.
Two societies, two paths, one working with nature, the other conquering it.
Volcanoes have split the continent and split up the groups of people. There is now a upper-class aristocracy, the Assyrians, that have all the culture and all the know-how and all the beautiful buildings. And then there is a lower class, the Mokai, that live separate from them, that are more thought of as barbarians.
And the Assyrians move forward, taking nature and bending it to serve their will. So you see a lot of them using things like water wheels and dominating the environment, whereas the Mokai tried to involve nature in their culture more, and what ended up happening for them is that actually gave them a technological advantage.
I can't believe the range their catapults had. Who said the Mokai were primitive?
Kobakai is the young Hotspur of the Mokai. His father is one of the main generals. His father's missing an arm from all the horrible warfare that he suffered. And he is a tired soldier. He's tired of the fighting and he wants to end madness between the two countries.
It's a good morning for peace.
It is always a good morning for peace, General.
That's why you need so many soldiers.
Enough, Kobakai!
His son, who I play, Koba, is not so hip to this. He's not so trusting of the Assyrians.
Of the volcanoes that have been sent.
Roan is reasonably idealistic, and when the politics in the world start to take shape and the story unfolds, he'll find himself having to make some very difficult moral choices. And we're hoping that the player really comes along for the ride and experiences Roan's journey along with him.
We shouldn't be fighting!
The diviner prophesied the battle, so it is done!
The fate of the world is in your hands. To succeed, you must challenge all you know and seek a deeper truth. At your command is a living, breathing war machine that can set ablaze your enemies or devour them whole.
You are the hero as part of a Top Gun squadron of dragon riders who is protecting one of the two civilizations and is pretty much fighting in a war against the other civilization. So you've got lots of stuff going on in the air, on the ground, and it's very much comparable to the Top Gun nowadays, to guys in really fast jets.
The great thing about flying in Lair is that now we have the 6-axis controller on the PlayStation 3. In all of our previous games, we spent a lot of time tweaking the analog controllers and trying to make it feel natural. But now that we have a tilt sensor in the controller, we're able to give the player this really intuitive feedback loop where just by moving the controller, it's like pulling on the reins of the dragon and you just feel like you're in control.
We got the controller, it's great, new hardware, and everyone huddles around the desk and looks at it. So the first thing we did is just take the controller and use the tilt as a replacement for the joystick, left-right. You tilt left, you tilt right, and everyone tried it and it's like, this is crap, I don't want to play this. And so Julie and I sat down, we said, wait a minute, let us try a little bit and continually replace parts of the game to work with this new way of interacting with the game.
After the first day, where everybody was extremely skeptical, then people slowly started coming around and said, you know what, it actually controls better.
Well, the really nice thing about the controller is it matches the way you would think that a dragon would move. When a player tilts the controller down, they know what's going to happen. They know their dragon's going to descend. So in a lot of ways, it made it easier to maneuver and much more intuitive.
And as with everything, you must learn to master the beast until you fight as one.
We've now developed an obstacle course which allows players to just play around and experiment and see how the controller works and how it controls the dragon. With the joystick, you only have a certain amount of range. You have it centered, and then you have to try to figure out between the center position and full extreme position where exactly you wanted to turn, how sharp you wanted to turn. Very difficult when you're talking about a little tiny joystick.
On top of that, what we're using is a gesture recognition system. So if you do certain things, which you would do when you hold the reins of a dragon, the game recognizes that and translates it without you having to press combinations of complicated buttons. It translates it into very easy movements. So for example, if you whip it up, then you do a 180 turn. If you slam your pad down, you dash forward with a dragon.
When you're on the ground, it's the same thing. You're in there, and just by jerking the controller to the right, the dragon will take his arms and he'll swipe at the enemy. It's very intuitive, and it's really fun.
Not all dragons are equal, and through many battles you will face multiple breeds.
There are several different dragon species in Lair, and they come from different regions. The player, as Roan, is riding on what we call the Plains Dragon.
Easy go.
And this is sort of a middle-of-the-road dragon, but even that is big and powerful. He's sort of like an SUV with wings and tail and teeth.
We have very light and weak dragons, like an ice dragon, for example. This kind of dragon, it's really simple to usually defeat him. Oftentimes it might just be a ranged fireball or a flame breath against him. We also have the much stronger, heavier dragons, like a dark dragon, for example. And that's the kind of dragon that you really need to beat him up quite a bit to defeat him.
Your fire isn't enough! You have to go in for the kill!
Obviously doesn't want you to attack him. He's trying to be evasive. He's doing evasive maneuvers. Within that melee mode, he's also trying to block your moves and try to get out of that so that he can attack you. The other things you can do is you can use your environments to your advantage.
Get rid of this thing!
If you know enemies are chasing you and you're outnumbered, it'd be a good idea to fly down by friendly troops and use your own troops to actually attack enemy dragons.
The combat in Lair is designed to get you closer and closer and closer to your target. First thing you do is you pick out who you want to attack, and there's a simple intuitive mechanism by which you can get the camera to focus on your enemy, and by shaking the controller down you can get your dragon to dash right towards your enemy.
We're calling it the pursuit bubble, and it's a bubble in the sense that you are in close range, flying still through the air with the other dragon, and you can start by actually using the physicality of the controller. You can slam into the other guy. He evades you, and you kind of do this ballet-like fight in the air, flying next to each other. Then the next step is, once you've rammed often enough